from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program. Happy to be here with you. This is the Thursday night edition of the program. Our telephone number, if you want to join us, feel free. It's 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And, man, let me tell you, earlier today I was talking with Wendy Bell. If you guys are out of Pittsburgh, you know that name. Synonymous with news and facts and a great show, and you probably see her on television as well, on Newsmax. But Wendy Bell and I were having a discussion about the media and a bunch of things. And one of the things that I have to say should not come as a surprise, but definitely comes as a disappointment, is how much they don't care, right? And I mean this in all sincerity. Perhaps it sounds altruistic or naive, but it really does leave a mark on me how much they really just don't care, right? Everything they do is a quest for power. It's a thirst for power. And I hate lumping people into monoliths, I really do, because it's like saying, oh, the Puerto Ricans or, oh, the whites. You just can't do that, right? You say the whites. Are you talking about the whites with the blue hair or the whites with the red hats, right? You don't know. So people are different. But when it comes to the mainstream media, and again, I'm sure there's plenty of guys that are doing local sports and local news that really aren't bent in either direction, or maybe they are. But I'm talking about the usual suspects. David Muir, for example. This David Muir, again, I'm going to say that I think he is a well-read person, right? I believe he's somebody that has studied. He's an educated person. I believe those things. I believe that David Muir looks at his paycheck and says, well, that's a pretty penny. Do I believe in everything Kamala's saying? No. Am I going to help carry her water? Absolutely. Why? Because why not? Where else is he going to make that kind of money? And that's the reality. And this is an old critique of mine. Really goes back to me getting involved in activism and commentary. But I'll say, if we're not willing to sacrifice a pension or a paycheck, we're screwed. We're all screwed. And it has to be a we thing, right? And I don't exclude myself from this. People, all people, if we're going to say, and we saw this with the vaccine, right? And again, I'm not casting blame or anything like that. I'm just making a point. If when push comes to shove, we always land on the side of, well, I've got a, look, I got a mortgage, I got mouths to feed, I got to keep a roof over me. If that's always going to be the answer, then you already know that you're never going to really stick to your guns on certain issues. And again, I'm not talking to anybody in particular, but I'm just saying everybody's going to do what they have to do until they say, you know what, I'm not. Let me know when my last day is. I'll figure this thing out. And I'm not asking people to take that stand per se. I'm just saying we're at that point of life. This whistleblower, I think it's great. People are excited about the signed affidavit. It was mailed. There's post stamps, this and that. I'm sure it's authentic. But guess what? When Tony Bobulinski came forward with his stuff, he had a press conference. He was on TV. He sat for interviews. And he was like, yeah, my name is Tony Bobulinski. I'm a former partner of Hunter Biden's. I sat down with Hunter Biden. I sat down with his father, then Vice President Joe Biden. And this is my name and this is my face, and I'm putting it out there on the record. Let's talk. But this other whistleblower is somehow trying to have their cake and eat it too. I think it's great that they want to say, hey, look, we found out this shady stuff going on. But really, what did you think was going to happen, sir, ma'am, whomever you are? What did you think was going to happen? Did you think you were just going to walk away and be like, I'm going to anonymously call this in, and I got this thing, and I'm going to write it down, and hopefully we're good? No. Now, if they think they're trying to build up some hype and that somehow we're going to, October surprise this thing, I think that's going to backfire. I think if you're coming out as a whistleblower, you've got to come out and say, hi, I'm a whistleblower. This is what my name is. This is what I do. This is what I believe. This is me on the record. Let me sit down for a 2020 interview. Let me go on Good Morning America. Let me go wherever they'll take me. Now, clearly, many of them may not want to interview them, but I'm pretty sure there are other networks that would, and get the story out there so that the American people, 44 days away from Election Day or 45 days, whatever the number is now, can make a decision on things. But I don't think it's effective. And again, this is just me. Maybe today is my day to be a little tough on everybody. But what does it do for us? Right? What do we do? Talk about this affidavit that is blocked out, and they're looking for these assurances. What assurances do you have? What assurances do I have? Any of us. Ultimately, and this is really the larger point, every time I get on the air, every time you put on a MAGA hat, every time you fly an American flag lately outside your home, you're sending a message. People are looking at you funny. If you're a registered gun owner somewhere in your state, there's a chance you could be on a list somewhere. If you're a parent that goes to school board meetings, there's a chance you could be on a list somewhere. If you refuse the vaccine, there's a chance you could be on a list somewhere. Everybody has skin in the game at this point. We all have something to lose. And that's the point that I'm making, the larger point. Right? The larger point is, how do we affect the media? We get into the media. And you change it from the inside out. I'm going to call it the Trump model. And I'm sure that there's plenty before him, but since he's the biggest name out there today, he's a great example. What does Trump do? Right? 70 years old, doing great. Right? He's got buildings with his name on them. He's got a beautiful building on Fifth Avenue. Golden building, right? Trump Tower. Lives there with his supermodel wife. And what does he decide to do? I'm going to run for president. Okay, super. And he gets into a world of hurt. I've spoken about this with President Trump. I've spoken about it with Don Jr. And I asked, why? Why would you put yourself through this? The answer is always the same. I had to do it for the country. Sometimes you've got to take one for the team. And that's the point that I'm making today. All of us, whatever it is, whether you're putting a bumper sticker on, you're changing your profile picture to be the picture of Trump with his fist in the air. I see it when people like or dislike my photos or whatever it is, my comments on Instagram and Truth Social and whatnot. I see a lot of people are standing in solidarity with Trump, with a photo of Trump, with his hand in the air. Those people are all taking a risk, unless it's like, user XYZ 2710, that type of thing. Minnesota girl 5544, one of those types of handles. But if your name is on things and you're publicly making this declaration that you stand with Trump or that you stand for America, there's a target on you. Not quite the same target that's been on Trump, God forbid. But nonetheless, there's a target. So when Trump goes on TV last night and he gets a championship belt, right, from former WCW wrestler Tyrus, right? The guy's larger than life, George Murdoch. And he presents him with this big leather belt and says, "You're the people's champ." I agree with that 100%. That was a flex. And it was very appropriate. Why? Because Trump is doing it. He left his deluxe apartment in the sky, walked away left his Melania and Barron, for a while before before they moved over to D.C. He sacrificed a lot. And this whistleblower needs to sacrifice a lot. And we all need to sacrifice a lot if we're going to win. If we want to see a change in the media, we got to become the media. If we want to see a change in Congress, we've got to become Congress. It's the only way. Like Reagan said, if not now, when? If not you, who? Don't go anywhere. I'm coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue our conversation. Again, the phone number is 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. And I want to talk about a few things, right, that we were just talking about. But I also want to remind you a little bit straight ahead, a little bit down the road, I should say. We're going to have a conversation on the shortage of ADHD medication. Adderall, what's up with those Addies? Where are they at? People are having trouble getting their hands on them for a long time. Look, I have ADHD. I opted many years ago to stay away from all of the meds because I took one and it wasn't for me. And maybe I'll get into that later. But we're going to talk about that because this has been going on for a while. And we've got some information that says this just might be the case in perpetuity, or at least as far as we can see. Then we've got the rate cuts, right? We talked about that yesterday. We got economist Antoni scheduled to be with us in a little bit. I can't wait to have that conversation because, you can't really run an election in September and say, hey, last 3 years don't count. We're gonna rally the markets right now, 60 days, 50 days from election day. We're going to do everything right now and then voila. But I want to get into this this topic I was on, which was El Trumpito, because, his campaign was hacked by Iran. But his approach is, I think, what's really selling, right, with people. The fact that it's a very common sense approach, and it's one that appeals to people. And this is why I think you've got steam fitters that are jumping on board with him, like union guys. I think this is why for the first time in 28 years, the Teamsters didn't endorse a presidential candidate because they wanted to go with Harris. The entire membership was like, nope, we're with Trump. And it didn't work. The union lost control of its membership. And I'm happy to hear that because I think for far too long, unions in general have been an instrument of honestly, an instrument of the communists abroad that have always sought to infiltrate the United States by way of labor unions. That's always been one of their goals. If you look way back in our history, that's been the case throughout. But I want you to hear this clip of Trump last night. He was in New York talking about common sense.
With 4 more years of Kamala Harris, New York State will be like a third world nation if it isn't already. It is. I think it is. With Trump, the Empire State will once again be the envy of the entire world. We will have no crime, only success. And unlike your current radical Democrat regime, I'm not driven by partisan ideology. I'm driven by results, and I'm driven by New York common sense. It's common sense, right? Right? It's common sense. I like to say the party, this is a great party. I like to say the party is really, we're conservative and all that, right? Who knows? You know what we are? We're really people with common sense. We need walls. We need good elections. We want low taxes. We want great police officers that are well taken care of. We don't want to defund the police. We're the party of common sense more than anything else, and it's picked up a lot of steam. It's true.
Now, this is the populist message that created what's known today as a Reagan Democrat, right? You had these Democrats that said, yeah, I agree with that stuff that Reagan's talking about, and they jumped on board. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. Look at this. New national survey from Gallup contains positive news for Trump concerning data from their survey. While the poll does not test the head-to-head matchup, It does measure, it does measure voters' impressions of the two major party nominees. This poll was in the field for the better part of 2 weeks, spanning both pre and post-debate dates, compared to dates in August when Kamala Harris was riding a wave of media, adulation because of, the honeymoon period, and this new data set shows the erosion in her favorability. Very interesting, right? Everybody knew that this would kind of wear off, and labeling it what they call a sugar high. Okay, so where are we at? Check this out. Trump is up 5 points in his favorable, according to the Gallup poll, to 46% favorability, down 2 points in his unfavorable. Listen to this one. Kamala Harris is not only 2 points beneath Trump in her favorability, but she's down 3 points. All right, so she doesn't have a +5 like Trump does. She has a -3. And in her unfavorable, she's at 54%, which is higher than Trump's, but she's at a +5. This is bad. Very, very bad. And let's see, amongst independents, Trump's got a net -9, and she has a -25. So it looks like Trump is doing well, according to this particular poll, and one that lasted 2 weeks. So that's interesting. I think it's a pretty interesting scenario. What's also interesting is that 95% of the media coverage of Trump in this time frame on ABC News, CBS News, NBC, following the second assassination attempt, has been negative. Our friends at the Media Research Center analyzed 69 minutes of coverage on ABC, CBS, and NBC between September 15th, so 4 days ago, and September 17th, when this whole thing went down. The report. Listen to this. The analysts at the Media Research Center reviewed those, nearly 70 minutes, 69 minutes, and found out that it took up the thwarted assassination attempt took up 70% of all campaign news on the networks. So obviously this is a significant amount of coverage on this particular topic, and the majority for Trump was negative. Over the first 3 nights, they tallied 21 evaluative comments about the Republican candidate, 20 of which were negative, which computes to a 95% negative spin score for Trump. How about that? That's pretty, I don't think it surprises us, but wow. You got to think, every time they're talking about you, they're saying something bad. Let's see, there's a couple of other examples they put in here, but I'm not going to get into all of that. I think that's the headline here. 95% of the coverage on Trump in the last 4 days following the assassination attempt has been negative. Right? And we played you some of those clips. They're like, well, if he might have to change how he campaigns. Well, if he wasn't out there and he's doing his rallies, right? He's looking for trouble. Unbelievable. Victim blaming at its best. Anyway, folks, we continue our conversation straight ahead. We were scheduled to have Tyrus with us. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we will continue the conversation, of course, with you all and everybody else we've got lined up. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
All right, amigos, welcome back, and we continue the conversation. And listen to this. So you've heard, we talked about it here, and I'm sure you've heard all over the news, that the Iranians, according to the FBI, have hacked the Trump campaign, and this information they stole, they sent it over to the Kamala Harris campaign. How about that? I think that's just so crazy, right? If it's like you can't write this stuff, right? You can't make it up. But listen to Trump. He talks about it last night at the rally.
And just today, 3 agencies of the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden administration, the FBI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, they just released a report confirming that Iran actors hacked into the Trump campaign's email accounts and in turn sought to give the hacked materials to the Biden-Harris campaign. They gave them all of the materials because Biden is working with Iran, and Iran doesn't exactly like me because they were ready to make a deal, except we had an election that was rigged and stolen. And look at what's happening to our world now. But no, Iran hacked into my campaign. I don't know what the hell they found. I'd like to find out. Couldn't have been too exciting. But they gave it to the Biden campaign. I can't believe it. Oh, yes, I can. But this is really foreign election interference. This is real election interference, not the phony crap that they've been trying to pin on me with Russia for years.
I love that. He calls it Iran. It's the new Russia. And these Iranian hackers, they stole sensitive information from the Trump campaign, according to the New York Post, and sent it to people affiliated with President Biden's now defunct campaign, I guess to make its way over to the Harris people in an attempt to meddle in the upcoming election. This breach took place between June and July, or from June to July. So it was happening before Biden dropped out of the race, and it was part of what they're saying, quote, was Iran's efforts to sow discord and shape the outcome of U.S. elections, according to the FBI. The breach was uncovered after the hackers similarly sent the stolen information from former President Trump to multiple American media outlets. And again, that was reported, whenever, a week or two ago when that happened. This information now, they're saying it's Iran. And a couple of, kudos to them, right? A couple of the media people actually did the right thing and said, we're not touching this with a 10-foot pole. And sometimes you have to do that. Now, according to the actual report, Iranian malicious cyber actors in late June and early July sent these unsolicited emails to individuals then associated with President Biden's campaign that contained an excerpt taken from stolen non-public material from former President Trump's campaign as text in the emails. And this is part of the joint statement that the FBI put out with the Office of the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, and CISA, the Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency, which to me sounds like deep state, and more deep state, right? Ultimately, I think that's what that is. So none of the people that were connected to the Biden campaign who received these emails with the stolen info from Trump replied to the hackers based on, the report, and that's a good thing, right? I think it's always bad if you reply, then they're in, or if you open the attachment, never open the attachment. At least in those few mandatory trainings I've had to take, that's always what they tell you. So it just, I can't wrap my head around some of these things. They're shooting at Trump, whomever they are. The Iranians are hacking the Trump campaign. Is there any report anywhere, if somebody wants to find it for me and send it over, super, of the Iranians hacking the Kamala Harris campaign? No. So if they're hacking the Trump campaign, getting information, and sending it over to the Biden people, then it's clear to me, in my limited understanding of things, that they want to help Biden and they don't want to help Trump. Now, so when Trump says, "Oh, they don't like me. Oh, they didn't like me because we were going to make a deal," and he's right. Why would they like him? He destroyed them with the sanctions that he put in there. They were doing very poorly. Why would they want to help Biden? Because he's helped them. One hand washes the other. Both hands wash the face. Biden's done a good job for them. They've gotten a few $1 billion, but now they're very close to having a nuclear weapon. He even gave them a public platform and said they should have it by the end of the year or by the end of 2 weeks or whatever it was that they said, 3 or 4 weeks ago. So by that account, they've got their nuke. So not only does Biden send them money, but he also says, hey, I'm going to have my spokesman go out there and let the whole world know you guys are back in the game. Iran has nukes, folks. How about that? So, yeah, why wouldn't they help? Of course they would. So imagine that. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This is who Americans are going to pick. People that are actively turning a blind eye to Iranian hacking and whatever's going on here. And that's who, that's the standard bearer. Come on. We have to be able to do better than that. We just have to. Anyway, I'm coming right back. More and on this and a couple of other things I want to get to, plus your calls. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right. Big thanks to the great one, Mark Levin. You just heard his voice there saying some nice things about me, and I appreciate that. The check's in the mail, sir. And by the way, I'll be filling in on the Mark Levin Show tomorrow from 6 p.m. Eastern Time to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, New York time. If you're able and available and listening on one of the affiliates that we share, super. I'd love to have a chat with you. And then I get to come back and do it again. So it's double duty for me. You got a double dose of Rich Valdez tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to that. Now, we're having this conversation about the Iranian hackers and whatnot and the Russians trolling, que mala eres, and all this other stuff that's going on. And you've got the... I don't know what he is, vice chair of Microsoft or something like that. Some, medium or high up muckety-muck over there at Microsoft who gave a warning saying, look, these people are out there and they're trying to get you. Listen to Brad Smith.
We have to start by recognizing that there are real and serious threats, including in this election. We've all been reporting on them, we've been seeing them, and you've talked about them. Every day we know that there is a presidential race between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. But this has also become an election of Iran versus Trump and Russia versus Harris. And it is an election where Russia, Iran, and China are united with a common interest in discrediting democracy in the eyes of our own voters and even more so in the eyes of the world.
Again, that's Brad Smith, the vice chair of Microsoft Corporation, at a hearing yesterday for the Senate Intelligence Committee, and that was his testimony before the Senate. This is a big deal, and I think it's appropriate for us to have a conversation about it. We've got ABC News that has, kind of thrown in with Que Mala Eres doing their thing there. We've got the hackers here in Iran that have thrown in with Harris. Who else is throwing in with Harris? Right? I mean, really, this is what I want to know. Because ultimately, we're sitting here thinking that we're playing fair. And if we're not playing fair, right, if every day, I think every day this week, or at least 3 out of the 4 days I've been on the air this week, there's been a new story about more and more ballots that are being found in states that are linked to ineligible voters, principally non-citizen voters. And that's me being generous, right? People that don't have the ability to vote, likely illegal aliens. So you tell me, we've got multiple problems on multiple fronts, and Trump's doing a stellar job, I think, of addressing them. But he can't fix everything, right? So he's got some people in the right place. I think he's got Lara Trump as co-chair. That I think she's doing a great job, along with Michael Whatley, who's also doing a very diligent yeoman's task of making sure that they keep recruiting people to be a part of a, kind of like a rapid response, immediate task force of people, attorneys and whatnot, for regulatory and legal issues. I highly recommend that. Highly recommend that. Because ultimately, we can't continue in a situation like this where people are getting hacked, right? And again, this was last month, it was the Trump campaign. This month, it was shooting at Trump. I mean, there's things happening everywhere you look. And then the Secret Service, we don't know. Last time it was, we got new people. We'll fire this one and we'll have the other one step down. At what point do we, we really start holding people accountable? And that's the problem that we face. When you've got the left embedded within the media, the left that's embedded in our government and in so many other areas, they kind of get to do whatever they want. Even if, you're the one calling the shots, say, no, don't do that, do it this way. Say, okay, hold on. And they'll do it their way anyway. And I've seen this stuff happen kind of firsthand when I worked in state government in New Jersey. There were people there that predated the governor and succeeded the governor. They were always going to be there. They are what everybody calls the deep state. The inner machinations of government that make the wheels go round and round, and nobody's put them there. They're just there. They're unelected bureaucrats that just exist to, in many ways, make our lives more difficult in the name of simplicity, right? What are you going to do? Anyway, I'm going to get to the rest of the topics and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez.
This headline from New York Magazine is pushing back on this logic, saying, quote, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, and saying so is not incitement. What strikes me, Jonathan, is many of the rhetorical attacks that we're seeing from Harris and Walz and the Harris campaign are using Trump's own words. They're just highlighting things that he has said, his own quotes. The bulk post from the Kamala HQ account is Trump in his own words. Do you see Democrats shifting their message? Should they?
No. What Trump is doing by trying to shift the blame onto Democrats is projection. Wow. That is all that Trump is. Anything he accuses someone of, just do a little search and you will see that he is guilty of it himself. And he's trying to deflect and he's trying to project.
Man, things like this give me a headache. And I'll tell you why. I don't know why or how, but I have this ability to hear things and read things and see things and meet people as if I don't have an opinion. I'm very objective with my ear and my initial, hey, how are you? I really am. I try to listen to that, and I think my children are nice people for the most part. My daughter Jada is a very nice soul. Jalissa is a lot tougher, but a joy. They really are. Nice girls that have lived a rather sheltered life, and nothing like how I grew up. And I think if they heard that, what would they think? Right? Their concern is not my concern, and nor should it be. But when you hear this man say that Trump is projecting, and then you hear me turn around and go, no, it's you guys that are projecting onto Trump. And he says, just do a quick search. And this is where it all unravels. We've covered how Google does what they want. And Google's the thing, right? There used to be a thing called a search engine. Nobody uses this term anymore. Everybody says Google. Google it, Google this, and Google that. Google's got the market cornered. Now, I've heard some of my tinfoil hat friends say that the CIA or CIA acolytes or whatever initially started Google as an intelligence gathering thing on the American people. I don't know if I buy it or not, but I'm just saying that's one concept that floats in the world, in the air. Now, you put that together with the fact that most people find most information on Google. I think that's a fair statement. I don't have a number to back that up, but I know that, you know, whether you have Safari, if you use an iPhone, or if you, whatever it is, if you're using an Android, the Google is the default search for most phones. And when it's not, people will usually switch to it. Some people use the Bill Gates one. It's called, what's it called? DuckDuckGo. They use the Microsoft one. But either way, it's, to me, it's two sides of the same coin. It's not truly independent or different or unrelated, right? Everybody has their agenda. We know what Bill Gates is up to. So when they say go ahead and Google it, and you've got article after article that, in my opinion, unfairly portray Trump on cases that are bogus, right? Because if you look for anything on Trump, you're going to find that, you know, this guy's a convicted felon. He's got 91 felony counts against him, yada, yada, yada. Most people say, oh, my God, no. And then when you hear Harris say sexual assault or sexual abuse or whatever she called him because of that E. Jean Carroll thing. And again, this is what they know what they're doing. They've been building a case for him to prosecute him in the court of public opinion, and they've been doing it for a long time. And their hope was to be able to control every angle. If we control what the government is accusing you of, and we control what the media reports, we can typically handle the fallout of how people will respond. And this is how they do it. And it's scary. It's scary to know that they do this, right? So here's another example of the same scenario in a different context. Trump says, they're eating the dogs. They're eating cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. I think that's exactly what he said, right? And I put out a reaction video to that, quote unquote, fact-checking the ABC News people, saying, you know what, to me, and maybe I'm wrong and maybe you disagree, I don't know, but I'll tell you this, if Biden or Kamala gets up there and they say they're eating the dogs, if I don't agree with them, I will probably argue against them, right? But if the claim is that somebody's eating dogs, illegal aliens, and then we find out it's not an illegal alien that's eating a cat, but some other person that's also in the same state eating a cat. To me, I don't think we've lost much here. I didn't lose much ground. Now, some people could say, oh, his claim was incredibly baseless. The claim was that someone was eating a dog and a cat. Whether or not this person is an illegal alien, to me, is a minor detail. Some might argue that that's a major detail. To me, the major detail is that somebody was eating a freaking animal, eating a pet. This is something I didn't think happened, right? So when we know that that actually did happen, it's like, but the media will have you think this was totally false, spreading false claims. Yeah, it's a false claim that it wasn't a Haitian immigrant, but there was a person eating a cat. And that, to me, is the bigger problem. How do we overlook that and bury the lead here? Talk about missing the message. Anyway, folks, it's Valdez. I'm coming right back. Don't go anywhere. Hour number 2 coming up.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 2 of our program. If you want to join us, it's 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about the shortage of Adderall, where them Addies at. I know a lot of people out there looking for their Adderall and they can't find it. There's still a shortage of the popular ADHD medicine, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. I also want to talk about the rate cut from the infamous rate hiker, Jerome Powell. Yesterday, he made that announcement that the Fed had cut interest rate, the main rate, by 50 basis points. Check this out.
Today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to reduce the degree of policy restraint by lowering our policy interest rate by a half percentage point. This decision reflects our growing confidence that with an appropriate recalibration of our policy stance, strength in the labor market can be maintained in a context of moderate growth and inflation moving sustainably down to 2%. We also decided to continue to reduce our securities holdings.
That is, again, Chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell. Now, the Trump team saw the opportunity and said, we're going to put out a brand new ad to respond to all of this. Check this out.
Another day under Bidenomics. Morning coffee costs 65% more. Gas for getting to work costs doubled. Workers' incomes down 3 straight years. Groceries cost you 20% more. And mortgage payments astronomical.
Bidenomics is working, and we are very proud of Bidenomics.
Pleasant dreams.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Now, the Fed is seemingly trying to recreate, at least what the Wall Street Journal is saying, is the 1990s masterpiece from Alan Greenspan, 1995 cuts that helped lay the groundwork for a soft landing in the late 90s boom years. I don't know a whole ton about that, and I'm going to get to the bottom line in a moment. But I do want to say that I find it so interesting that you've got folks in the White House, the administration, Kamala Harris, Biden, Buttigieg, whomever, they're all out there, singing this song. Biden's like, hey, we're doing great. We're doing great. And, and whenever there's a day like today where markets are rallying and whatnot, he's taking his victory lap, I'm sure. You got Kamala Harris, of course, that is making the case that no matter what happens, it was all Trump's fault because he messed up COVID. He bungled it, right? Or whatever term she uses all the time. It's always the same line. And then she'll say, and the fact is, too many people can't afford their groceries. And too many people can't afford gasoline. And too many people. And she just kind of pulls up the chair right next to you, sits down with you, and, does the complaining for you about her policies. It's just remarkable how she's able to do it. The hubris is, wow. Anyway, so there's that. And then there's Buttigieg saying this. Check this out.
I do think it's important to have that before and after picture, not just what our economy was going through during COVID, but also economists, really credible economists, saying there was basically a 100% chance of a recession coming. And instead, what we have is economic growth, low unemployment, and maybe most importantly for American families, we've made such enormous progress getting inflation back down. Every developed country in the world experienced a rise in prices. The U.S. was not immune to that, but what was different in the U.S. is how quickly it's been fought back down through a number of different measures, including, of course, investing in American supply chains.
I don't know what he just said. I'm dizzy. It's like he went to the Kamala Harris School of Word Salad. Anyway, the bottom line is, yeah, of course everybody's prices went up. There was that whole supply chain issue, and then the United States is a major trade partner for so many people. It would make sense that if we were having a problem, others are having a problem, right? It's almost understood that would be the case. But to fill in the blanks, because he said well-recognized economist. Well, I've got my own economist, a well-recognized, a reputable economist. E.J. Antoni. E.J. Antoni is a Ph.D. economist for the Heritage Foundation. He's the in-house economist here at America at Night with Rich Valdez. And I hear that we got him on the line. E.J. Antoni, welcome back, sir.
Well, Rich, thank you for having me again.
My pleasure, brother. Mi casa, su casa. And no, really, you have this ability, unlike most people at the doctoral level, to say things that I understand. So I love that. I love that a lot when it comes to this stuff. So there's a few things I want you to talk about. We've got 2 segments to talk about it. So A, is this a recreation of Greenspan's masterpiece? And if so, describe it. B, is Buttigieg out of his mind? And C, do you think people are going to fall for this? The fact that there's a rally in the market today and maybe things look a little bit brighter today, 40-something days away from Election Day, than they did for the last 4 years. Is that enough to fool people? What say you?
Great. Always. Let's take that first. Is this a repeat of Greenspan? To a certain extent, yes, but that's not something that's positive. We forget that what Greenspan did in the 1990s by essentially, basically he bailed out some failed leveraged hedge funds. And in order to do that, he had to create a ton of money to cover their losses. He had to artificially reduce interest rates. In other words, things that set up the dot-com bubble, which eventually burst in 2000 and 2001. So this idea somehow...
EJ, I'm losing you. It sounds like the deep state is in your phone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick pause right here. We're going to reestablish our connection with EJ Antoni, and we're going to fight off the deep state. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And we have successfully fought off the deep state. We've got E.J. Antoni. He's got one leg up on a dresser, another leg out the window. He's got a tinfoil hat on because, he's talking to me. And I think we've got a good connection. E.J. Antoni, we were talking about how the American people may or may not believe the load of crap that's being sold to them by the administration, that things are just hunky-dory. They're fantastic. They had nothing to do with the problems that we're facing. And they're trying to recreate the not-so-fantastic Greenspan maneuver from the 90s. Go right ahead.
Right. And, Rich, I hope you can hear me a little better now. I'm on a landline, and I've lined the room with aluminum foil, so hopefully we're good to go.
You sound like you're in the studio with me. I love it.
So, like I was saying earlier, Rich, people forget that what Greenspan did was basically kick the can down the road. And so the big economic boom that we had in the 90s, part of that was because there was too much printing of money. And when that ended, the whole dot-com bubble that was created ended up bursting. We saw the exact same thing then that Greenspan did thereafter, basically right after 9/11. They printed a ton more money, and what did that do? It gave us a housing bubble. And so the Fed has basically just been creating bubble after bubble to cover up for its previous failings. And so the really scary thing is that we look like we're repeating, Rich, the mistakes of the 1970s, where just when the Fed was on the brink of success, we almost got inflation down. We've made a lot of progress. That's true. We've almost gotten it down to where it should be. And what are they doing? They're reversing course. And again, when we did that in the 70s, what happened? You got another peak of inflation, except this time it was even worse than the last one.
Folks, we're on with E.J. Antoni. He is an economist with the Heritage Foundation. And E.J. Antoni, I get that part. Now, you've been doing this long enough, and I know you're a social scientist and whatnot, but do you really think that people, like today, for example, one of the big aggregators that's out there, they're reporting that I'll just give you the headline here. Biden beats Trump at stock market. And this is the big news for them today. Then it's followed by Harris headed for a blowout. 45 days of magamania, right? It's just it's so hyperbolic. But I personally, I don't know if I think I give Americans too much credit sometimes. We'll see. Hopefully, I'm right. I believe people will see right through this and say, you know what, that's great that we had a really nice little rally a month and a half before Election Day. But what about the last 4 years? What about the incessant corrections to the jobs numbers? That was always what they said, that the jobs were where it was at. And lo and behold, it wasn't where it was at.
Rich, all great points. The other thing I would add to that is the fact that the stock market is priced in dollars. When you buy a share of a company, it's priced in dollars. And so that share price can go up, not just because there's an increase in real value for the company, but also if the dollar goes down because it now takes more dollars to buy the same share of stock. That is the phenomenon that we have seen under the Biden-Harris administration. About 2/3 of the increase in stock prices we have seen for the last 3.5 years have not been because of that increase in real value. Instead, it's just been an increase in inflation. In other words, that's how much the dollar has gone down. This is a big reason why, for example, gold is on an absolute tear, pushing $2,600 an ounce. It was at only $2,000 to start the year. I mean, that's absolutely insane when you consider how much it's gone up and how fast. It's because it symbolizes for us how much value our dollar has lost, again, because of inflation.
So let's talk about this, because obviously this is, to me, one of the I don't think I've ever let you off the hook when you've come on our show, but I always ask, because this is like a daily topic on my text message threads with a bunch of different people that just, we're waiting for the moment for the dollar to crash. We're waiting for the moment for the dollar to crash. And I want to believe, and you know, colleagues of yours, Steve Moore and others, they say, no, we don't think the dollar is going to crash. You know, nobody bars it from happening. It's a possibility, of course. But most people think, even Trump, right, at the recent comments that he gave at the Economic Club of New York City, he says, we're bringing the dollar back. We're going to make the dollar this, that, and whatever. And it made sense to me. There's a lot of talk about tying the dollar to the gold standard. Do you think that all of these things are a reality? And I'm not asking you to be Nostradamus. I'm just saying from the tea leaves that you can read, is the dollar doomed forever, or what do you think?
Well, I think you can certainly save it. You can repeg the dollar to gold. And what's really interesting here, Rich, is the fact that the president can do this unilaterally. It was a president, Richard Nixon, who undid the gold peg with an executive order. Well, basically, for the most part, anything you do with an executive order, you can undo with another executive order. So there's no reason to believe that the next president, whoever it is, whether it's Trump or anyone else, can't simply issue an executive order and say, okay, we are going to repeg the dollar to gold. And you don't have to repeg it at the old price of, let's say, $35 an ounce. You can do it at today's price of, again, $2,600 an ounce, whatever the case may be. But I think this whole idea of, is the dollar going to collapse? The problem here in determining that is that it's not even a matter of math anymore. If you just look at the numbers, it's very clear that it's the equivalent of a business that's insolvent, right? But the issue is, when are people going to realize it's insolvent? And when that happens, that's when foreign investors, that's when foreign governments all start to dump their dollar holdings. And that's when you have 70 years worth of deficits all come pouring back to this country at once. That's not just inflation, that's hyperinflation at that point. But it relies on a break in mass psychology. And you know, as much as I'm a social scientist, I'm not that kind of social scientist. So in determining exactly when people are going to break, that's just, it's a little out of my league, to say the least.
Sure, and that makes sense. But let's presume we get to this point, right? Because that's like you said, it's not a math thing, but you get there with China pushing their propaganda about the dollar and the weakness of the dollar. And let's just say they're successful in that. We get to this point. Is there a, let's just say Trump's in office. Aren't there actions that one could take, that I think one should take, that would safeguard the dollar, like tying it back to the gold standard and having this type of asset-backed currency, maybe talking or even threatening to abolish the Fed, get rid of the Fed. Wouldn't this strengthen our position?
I certainly think that's right. Absolutely. You can get rid of the Federal Reserve because once you have a mechanism like a gold peg, you no longer need a separate institution to essentially regulate the quantity of money. The quantity of money gets automatically regulated by the private market as people continue to trade in more gold for dollars or more dollars for gold, either one. That changes those ratios, and the market finds its own equilibrium, exactly like it did before we had a Federal Reserve and before the dollar lost 98% of its value. That's not an exaggeration. So getting rid of the Fed, repegging the dollar to gold, these are all very, very wise things, but they also require getting rid of the massive, massive federal deficit, which is over $2 trillion a year right now. You simply can't have that continue without a fiat currency, in other words, a worthless paper currency that is managed by a quasi-public institution like the Fed.
Okay, so let's tackle that one now. So ideally, if we continue with the Fed, we can't have the dollar forever. And I get that. That's fair. Is that ultimately what you're saying? Because it sounds like that's what you're saying.
Yes, I mean, any, and this is not just the United States, really, any government throughout history that did away with any kind of precious metal or other commodity-backed money and moved to a paper currency, it eventually caused not just the collapse of the currency, but what's even more scary is it eventually caused the collapse of the nation itself.
Right. Well, I think that's the fear. That's always the fear. It's like, who really cares about the dollar? It's really everything else that goes with it. Now, with that point being made, and we always talk about BRICS, and there's a lot of people that have become very critical of the United States. I love the country, but they're very critical of the policies that we've espoused over the years, and some of them are rooting for BRICS. Do you think that BRICS is able to finally coalesce around an actual currency and become competitive to the dollar?
I think it's certainly possible because the dollar, it has gone through several severe devaluations over the last 100 years, and the most recent one cost dollar holders a fifth of value in less than 4 years. I mean, that is a catastrophic rate of loss. Now, has that rate of loss subsided significantly? Yes, absolutely. But that doesn't mean you're ever going to get those losses back. People are sick and tired of that. On top of that, you now have this incredible, political risk, I think you could call it, where now the dollar is no longer considered sacrosanct, and this government has decided that they can play games with the dollar on the international stage and essentially confiscate dollars owned by foreigners. Who wants to hold dollars in such a regime?
Exactly. That's an excellent point. E.J. Antoni, I want to thank you for being here. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, sir.
Thank you for having me, Rich.
We'll do it again soon, brother. All right, folks, we continue the conversation. Why are people with attention deficit disorder not able to get their drugs? More straight ahead. I'm Rich Valdez.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And I wanted to get into this topic of ADHD. And, I bring it up every now and again. I've had it for, I guess, my whole life, but found out that I had it around 32 years old. And interesting stuff. And there's been these ongoing shortages that just keep happening. And I know some people that are, I'm going to say, I don't want to say dependent, but they are dependent on this medication to be able to work and to be able to function. And they've had some complaints. Now, for me, they didn't always work, and I'll get into that momentarily. But there's a clip of audio that our producers grabbed, and I want you to hear it. Check this out.
3 things I wish I knew when I was first diagnosed with ADHD. Number 1 is that medication is not a silver bullet. Don't get me wrong, medication can be very helpful for some, but it won't single-handedly solve all your problems. It's important to understand that medication is just one tool in the toolbox for managing ADHD. There are many things in addition to medication like lifestyle changes, diet, testing, and supplementation that are equally as important. Number 2 is that it's a marathon and not a sprint. Managing ADHD is a lifelong journey, not a quick fix. And developing effective strategies and habits takes time, patience, and iterations of trial and error. There will be setbacks and challenges along the way, but persistence and adaptability are key. And number 3 is the importance of an individualized approach. What works for one person with ADHD might not work for another. Each individual's experience with ADHD is very unique, therefore the management strategies must be tailored to fit personal needs. Be open to experimenting with different approaches, whether they involve diet, exercise, mindfulness, or organizational techniques, and see what works for you.
That's Dr. Dan Sullivan, and I want to thank you for that clip. And there's something he said that I thought was really important, and it was that medication is not the silver bullet. And it really wasn't for me. I tried all of them. I tried them all, from Vyvanse to Ritalin to Adderall to, I don't know, what's another one? The one that's a non-stimulant, Strattera, actually is the only one I liked. Didn't give me all the jitters and all that. And it wasn't for me. The idea of being quote unquote normal, right? And of not having my mind have 1,000 tabs open at the same time and be able to, it's like I have 14 brains, you know, they're multiple brains are running different things at the same exact time. And that's something that would madden a lot of people, but for me, it's how it works. So when you take these drugs, they make you like everyone else. You kind of think of one thing at a time, and it's really weird. You know, I'm not constantly going back and forth. I don't shake my leg. I'm super calm. It was just a very weird feeling for me, and I was like, this is not for me. And I read an article by back then, it was 2008, 9, whatever it was, the CEO of JetBlue, and he wrote this op-ed about having ADHD and how he, same like me, tried the medication, thought it was crazy, felt like a different person with the medication, and it took away his creativity and his ability to think on his feet and the spontaneity of life and all this stuff. And said, you know, he would never be able to be a successful entrepreneur and business person if he took this medicine. And I said, you know what, that's good. I'm glad I'm not the only one that doesn't want to take this stuff. But there are people that rely on this. And despite the pitfalls, right? I mean, there's an article the other day from Yahoo News. High doses of Adderall are linked with heightened risk of psychosis and mania. Then you've got the New York Post. Adderall and Ritalin can decrease productivity in people who don't have ADHD. That's the people who take it to study or to be focused or whatever it is. So there's a lot to discuss here, but I want to bring in one of our experts, Dr. Francis Murphy. He specializes in healthy living, and he's going to help us understand how this shortage may not be getting any better. Dr. Francis Murphy, welcome.
Hey, Rich.
So check this out, right? We're looking at this study that's in the Journal of Clinical Child and Adolescent Psychology. And 1 in 9 children in the United States have been diagnosed with ADHD in the last couple of years. And, you know, here we are, mid-September, and people are still complaining that they can't get their hands on this stuff. And I think this is a problem. And when you look at these articles, some of them are suggesting that it's not going to get any better. Dr. Francis Murphy, what's going on?
Oh, my gosh, Rich, it's such a huge problem, and COVID compounded it several times over. They were starting to diagnose people with depression and other things and starting to use these drugs for those particular problems that it wasn't intended for. And when that happened, there was an explosion of companies that came out there, and a lot of them are being sued now for opening up like telemedicine and really pushing these drugs on the people that really didn't need them. And so the need for them exploded, and the people that really needed them couldn't get it. And that was the initial problem. That is how this all started.
So what's the solution? Because some are suggesting here that it's not going to get any better.
Well, here's the problem is that ADD and ADHD, Tourette syndrome, and related disorders have not been identified. The culprit has not been identified. And, I see these types of patients. I have been seeing these types of patients for years and years and years now. And I had ADD and ADHD and have it. And so I needed to find a solution, or at least a cause, an answer to my problems. And so I studied hard over this problem for a long, long, long time. And what I've identified is a series of things going on, a bunch of stuff that causes this. The research shows that, for instance, women who drank artificial sweeteners and soft drinks back in the 50s, 60s, their children have a much higher degree of ADHD and ADD than your average kid out there. And then there are other things going on, pesticides, herbicides in the ground, in the food that we're eating, breaks down the blood-brain barrier and allows heavy metals and other things to get in our brain that are not supposed to be there. There's the advent of the telephone, the cell phone, which in 2004, the average attention span of a teenager was 2 minutes and 50 seconds. 2012, 75 seconds. And in 2022, 47 seconds. At this rate, we won't have a span of attention anymore.
That's crazy. But I understand it. And life has changed, right? This long-form radio program that I do, it's fascinating because it's amazing that it's a thing because of the way life has gone now, right? I spent all my day looking at short clips of videos that are short and beyond short because of that, because attention spans are super short. I watch young people. I have young people, 2 daughters. I've watched them watch videos and they may or may not have ADHD, but the point is I watched them watch it and they won't actually watch something. They scan it, they jump right through, they're hitting the fast forward button, they're jumping across, moving that little circle at the bottom of the screen. They will not actually watch something that's like 9 minutes. And I just think, wow, that's pretty interesting, right? Whether it's impatience or whatever it is. And it seems to be a trend, Gen Z, Gen whatever. So my thinking here is that's the new normal for this generation. And I think we have to figure out a solution, right, Doc?
Oh, yeah. There are solutions. There are a lot of solutions. We have to tighten up our food supply and our air supply and our water supply. There's a organization, EWG.org, that you can go look up your water supply, what's in your water. Rich, you'll be shocked at what's in your water in your zip code right now. Go look at it. There are a dozen or more things, sometimes in some communities, hundreds of things in the water that shouldn't be in there. And so people filter their water, but they're still bathing in it. And we're exposed to this stuff constantly. And this is something that can be cleaned up. This is something that we could take care of. And things like when you and I were kids, my mother used to say, stand up straight. And they took a lot of pride in their posture and the way they carried themselves. And so postures have waned, and a waning posture has a huge degree of insult to the nervous system. It changes the way your nervous system works.
That's interesting. I want to learn more about that when we come right back. Folks, we're going to come right back with our guest, Dr. Francis Murphy, and continue this conversation on the nervous system and posture, because, I'm a big avid supporter and connoisseur, if you will, of going to the chiropractor for that specific reason, to make sure my posture is good and to make sure my nervous system's running at 100%. Anyway, we're going to continue with Dr. Francis Murphy straight ahead. The phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
you have experience and skills in interviewing, or you wouldn't be on your program.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We continue our conversation with Dr. Francis Murphy, and we left off with him saying that posture was a big deal and that having everything in order obviously is the key there to a healthy nervous system. This is something I personally have always believed in. I've been doing chiropractic for, I don't know, a long time, and I don't know, probably like 15 or 18 years or something like that, and I do it. I used to do it twice a week. Now I do it only once a week. But if a few too many days go by without me getting adjusted, or as I like to say, and to the chagrin of the physicians, cracked up, I get angry. Anyway, let's bring our guest back in, Dr. Francis Murphy. You were saying.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a story, but I've told it a million times, so I can say it fast. In 2006, I discovered that this skull-on-spine relationship, which has everything to do with posture, was often a person who had a frozen shoulder. And when I corrected it, the frozen shoulder went away immediately. And I became a famous chiropractor then. That is how I became a famous chiropractor.
Get out of here.
And
I have a messed up shoulder. I got to come see you.
I'm in Dallas, Texas. But
take a trip. Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a ride, yeah. But so it was astonishing, and I got a lot of accolades, and I got to travel around the world and teach people what I was doing to solve this problem. But it dawned on me over the course of this time that how could this specific lifting and specific changing of the posture insult this one nerve that causes frozen shoulder and leave all the other nerves around it alone. And so when I went to investigate what those nerves are and what they did, it led me to the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve controls this fight, flight, freeze, rest, digest, heal part of the nervous system. So when I correct that particular thing, the skull-on-spine relationship, it has an amazing change in the vagus nerve and the function of the vagus nerve. Cortisol levels come down, adrenaline levels come down, and that is the cause of ADD and ADHD. When adrenaline and cortisol levels go up, they're the chemicals that alert a person into, hey, there's a tiger in the room. There's a serious situation right now, and you need to pay attention to it. So you can't pay attention to the things that you're supposed to pay attention to because these chemicals are making you at a heightened state of awareness. But now, say, it's a test, and it's test time, and now you have to be focused in, or you have to get a paper in. And now the ADD, the ADHD becomes a superpower because it allows you to focus in on one thing and one thing only. And at that point when it becomes critical. And so this is a small part of the puzzle for ADD and ADHD. But when the skull-on-spine becomes malpositioned, it has a great effect on the vagus nerve. And this changes the posture of the entire body, because our head is always trying to find its way to the horizon line. And when it does that...
I'm sorry, Doc, you said our head's trying to find its way where?
To the horizon line. It's always trying to level it so that we can drive, see, read, and have our head straight so that we can orient ourselves to the earth properly. So when your skull is misaligned like that, it forces the rest of your body to contour itself to drive your eyes to the horizon line, which puts you in this battle with gravity. The skull and the body are fighting each other, and it really irritates the central nervous system. And this is the part of it that people don't understand at all. They try to combat these problems with other drugs when really, if you can get the body to work properly and then calm it down properly, feed it properly, you can bring it back to normal. And part of the process is, hey, I got a day timer. In the morning, I wake up at a certain time. I pray, or whatever I do in the morning. I get up, I prepare myself for work if that's what you do. And then there's certain times you use your cell phone and not other times. There's certain times you work out. And this is a way to build your way back from having ADD, ADHD, and some of these problems that drive the vagus nerve and the autonomic nervous system to be so out of whack.
Wow. Doc, we'll leave it there. Dr. Francis Murphy from Dallas Wellness. Check him out at dallaswellness.com. I really appreciate it. I will eventually make my way over there because I have this shoulder issue, and I've seen a couple of chiros, and, it's love-hate, right? I love the chiropractor, but whenever I don't get what I need fixed, I'm like, no, you're not getting it. You're not doing it right. And they're like, no, because the body needs to heal. But for years? Come on. Anyway, Doc, I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for being here. Folks, we come back with the rest of your calls and more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, we've convinced Dr. Francis Murphy to stick around to answer some of your questions. Let's go to Paul, Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ. Paul, quickly, go right ahead.
Hey, good evening, Rich and Dr. Murphy. Yeah, my daughter's experienced that. She works 4 10s a week at the computer at home, and she actually has had problems. And they're thinking it's a pinched nerve and so forth. So she went to see a chiropractor. But that's one of the things that I wanted to say. But the other one was I wanted to ask the doctor also. Sure. About ADHD. Now, don't you think that social media might exacerbate some of that? With today that people can't pay attention for like 5 minutes because they're on their phone so much. And
Dr. Murphy?
Oh, yeah. We were just discussing that. People stay on their phones for long periods of time, and it needs to be pulled back. Once you become addicted to something like that, the addiction gets stronger over time. And if you have, like Rich was talking about his kids, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I have kids that work for me, and the younger they are, if you try to separate them from their phones during the day, they'll quit. They'll quit their job, and because the phone it has become more important than anything else, and that's when you know it's a problem.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Everybody else that's hanging on, we're going to get to you momentarily. Dr. Murphy, again, let everybody know how they could follow you on social media.
Yeah, I'm on Dallas Wellness on every social media platform. So it's dallaswellness.com, Dallas Wellness on TikTok, YouTube, all of it.
Outstanding. All right, folks, that's Dr. Francis Murphy, and we'll be getting with the rest of you guys, Pennsylvania, Arkansas, Idaho, and more straight ahead. Folks, it's me, Rich Valdez. We're coming right back with Open Phone America, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of the program. And happy to be here with you. If you want to join us, this is the one we call Open Phones Across America, where you get to weigh in on pretty much anything we've talked about tonight, anything that's on your mind. Something that's breaking in the last little bit is a meeting between Oprah and Que Mala Eres. They held a star-studded event, and this is pretty interesting stuff because obviously, we always want to hear what Que Mala Eres has to say, especially when she's joined by Oprah Winfrey. Now, Oprah Winfrey is making her way over there to this event, and she tells a story about bumping into somebody who shares who they're voting with. Listen to this.
When I was coming through the airport, black man stopped me, and he said I guess he knew I was coming here for something like this, and he goes, "Well, I'm just tell you, I'm voting for Trump."
Good for you, brother. Good for you. I'm glad you went out of your way to let Oprah know what was on your mind and what you're doing. So that's the story on that one. And just to give you a little bit of the scoop there, Vice President Harris and media mogul Oprah Winfrey, as is being reported in The Hill, sat down for this event in Michigan to discuss, issues ranging from immigration to the economy. What's funny, when she got to immigration, she totally dodged it. But the clip is so long, I may not have enough time to play it for you. But they talked about abortion and gun violence prevention, as they call it. And the event, it was almost like an interview by Oprah, right? Like her old talk show. It included about 400 people in the audience, and many others who joined virtually. There were some celebrities there like Ben Stiller, J-Lo, Bryan Cranston, Chris Rock, Tracy Ellis Ross, Julia Roberts, and Meryl Streep. Talk about star power. Man. And Vice President Harris and Oprah Winfrey discussed abortion, the right to abortion. What else did they talk about here? What else do we got? There's more. I know there's more. They also got into lots of other stuff. I mean, it's starting to get boring here. But we have a clip of her talking about gun ownership, and I think it's pretty eye-opening. Listen to this.
It was so powerful at the convention when you said you have guns. No, at the debate. At the debate,
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes. I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
But
my staff will deal with that later.
Yes, ma'am. You're going to deal with that tomorrow, right? And if it's on our program, we're doing it live. We're doing it right now. Que Mala Eres says if you break into her house, you're getting shot. And you know what? That's good. Now, maybe she thinks this is going to win her some Second Amendment people. It's not. It's not, because her policy of saying, I'm not taking anybody's guns. I'm a gun owner. If you break into my house, you're getting shot. Yeah, I believe that. I do, especially if you're from San Francisco. But check this out. You're on the record talking about mandatory gun buybacks. Now, gun buyback is a euphemistic term for we will give you money, but you have to give us your gun. They try to make it sound nice, but it's nothing. It's kind of like eminent domain. The government is taking your home. Whether they give you the money for it or not, they're going to give you what they want to give you, and they're going to take what they want to take. You have little say to none, right? So when Que Mala Eres comes out and says, if you're coming into my house, you're going to get shot, let's play it again, because I want everybody to be able to hear it clearly. Check this out.
It was so powerful at the convention when you said you have guns. No, at the debate. At the debate,
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes. I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
But
my staff will deal with that later.
Now, I got to tell you, I've heard people speculate that they believe that she's intoxicated at times. I don't think so. I think that she actually is a one of those people that her default is to be a clown. kind of like me in many ways. And I mean this in a good way. This is me paying her a compliment, right? Just a funny person that sees life through kind of funny eyes and is kind of always laughing at something. That's kind of how I live my life. I'm always laughing at something, right? This is probably the most serious 3 hours of my life is the 3 hours on the radio. It really is. Everything else, I am like a 14-year-old boy that hasn't grown up yet. And I think that might be Kamala. But I will say, she does strike me as a stoner, right? When she says, I did smoke and I did inhale, I think she's still smoking. I think she's still smoking and she's still inhaling because she sounds like my buddies in high school when they would little puff, puff, pass and just laugh at everything, like every last statement, right? That laugh, it just sounds like she's about to tell Oprah, Oprah, Oprah. Can we get to the White Castle or the In-N-Out Burger? Can we please? Can we just go real quick to the drive-thru? I mean, she sounds like she's about to get the munchies. Again, I'm not trying to malign her in any way. I think it's funny. But this is the conversation. She says, if you break into my house, you're getting shot. And on the other side of her mouth, she says that she's taken everybody's guns. But she's not taking anybody's guns. This is a woman, it's difficult to believe her. Because we've seen her record, and her record is very opposite of what she says. Now, people can change, but you've got to make an announcement about your change. You've got to say, hey, look, I started looking at this a different way, and I realized I was wrong. Right? You've got to make a statement. Her statement on fracking, it doesn't do that. In my opinion, it's pretty clear that she's just not right. Right? She says, oh, no, I was never... as of 2020, you didn't tell anybody in 2020. There's no defining moment where she just says, "Oh, by the way, I'm for fracking." But there was a defining moment where she said she was not, and that she would definitely or 100%. I forget which term she used. Absolutely, right? She was absolutely for a ban on fracking. So I don't know. Now, Trump, I don't remember other than the folks in Kurdistan, I don't remember Trump really flip-flopping on anything. Pretty much everything he said, he's still saying. He's still talking about the danger at the border. Still talking about the danger of crime, in particular illegal aliens, where it's related to the border. The economy, the deep state, the swamp. Nothing's changed. Right? Trump is on message. He's on point. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Plus, we're going to make an attempt to see if we can get this audio of her talking about immigration and really not answering the question at all. We're going to try and tighten that up to a little bit shorter clip, but we're going to try and bring you that when we come back. Plus, your phone calls. I see there's a few still on hold. We're definitely going to get to you. Thank you for your patience. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Thank you so much for having me back on, Rich. I always enjoy talking to you.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
That was Dr. Phil, by the way. Thank you, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil's a regular listener of this show. Big shout out to Dr. Phil, who is from the Oprah ilk, right? That's the best way of saying it. I first saw him on Oprah, and look at where he's at. He's turning things upside down, doing an amazing job at Merritt Street. Anyway, speaking of Oprah, so Oprah sitting down with Kamala Harris, and they're having this side-by-side, recreation of the Oprah Winfrey Show. And Kamala Harris is so comfortable talking to Oprah. She's opening up. She's saying, look, if you break into my house, you are getting shot. Now Oprah says, well, now that you're open, I'm going to ask you about immigration. And this is where she starts to run away from actually answering Oprah's question. Check this out.
When you become president, what would be your specific steps? Yeah, of course. What would be specific steps to strengthening the border?
So it's a wonderful and important question. You know my background. was as a prosecutor, and I was also the elected Attorney General for 2 terms of a border state. So this is not a theoretical issue for me. This is something I've actually worked on. Okay. I have prosecuted transnational criminal organizations.
You know what she hasn't done, though? She hasn't been a border czar. How about saying, I'm the vice president of the United States, and for the last 3.5 or 4 years now, I actually have had the job of being in charge of the border. President Biden put me in charge of the border, and here's what I did to alleviate this problem. We did X, Y, and Z. Instead, what she's done and what they've done and Alejandro Mayorkas has done, they have streamlined this process. They've created an app, and they bring people in on airplanes. I'm not making it up. Look for it. You can find it. They're not even hiding this stuff. This is why she's not talking about it, because she can't. She can't win if she talks about it. She can't even lie about it. There's too much proof. It's all over the place. People have been taking video of these airlines that are landing at 4 o'clock in the morning, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, with migrants coming in from all over the place. They didn't sneak on the plane. You paid for it. I paid for it. We paid for it. We the people, right? U.S. tax dollars. This is clearly an Achilles heel for her and her campaign, and it's where Trump has to continue to hammer her effectively. And the fact that she's going to go back to saying, I prosecuted transnational. Ma'am, you are a transnational criminal. You are overseeing the largest underground railroad of human trafficking and human smuggling I've ever seen in my entire life. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Alejandro Mayorkas are overseeing this slave trade, a modern-day slave trade at our southern border. And they're doing it at your expense, my expense, and the expense of every last U.S. taxpayer. Go ahead.
For the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. I take very seriously the importance of having a secure border and ensuring the safety of the American people. Sadly, where we are now can be traced most recently back to the fact that when the United States Congress, members of the Congress, including some of the most conservative Republicans, came up with a border security bill. And here's what that border security bill would have done. It would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border.
And you know what else it was going to do? Let's hang on real quick, Kamala. Excuse me, Madam Vice President, que mala eres. You know what else it was going to do? It was going to allow 2 million people a year into the country. Now, this is not the million people a year that we take in via lottery, via legal immigration. No, this would be codifying, right? Legalizing, making it a matter of law by legislation, letting in 2 million people a year, 5,000 people a day. Just imagine that. How are we going to fix the problem at the border? We're going to allow up to 5,000 people a day. Wow, that's fantastic. This woman is a real winner. She's a keeper. She's a genius. Come on, you've got to be kidding me. Go ahead.
Are working around the clock. It would have just been about giving them some support and relief, which is probably why the border agents actually endorsed the bill.
Excuse me, ma'am. The border people, they've been on this show, they've been on TV. Matter of fact, just today, Brandon Judd was talking about how he presented you with absolutely everything, put it at your fingertips, and A, you didn't go there for like a year and a half, and B, when you went to San Antonio, you didn't do anything with the information that they gave you. So what gives? Here, I'm going to tell you what happened here. The problem here isn't overworked border agents. We all know that. The problem here was all of the scamming and scheming and lying that you've done to manipulate an open border to allow massive amounts of people into the country. For years now, people have known that Hispanics are going to be the largest minority voting bloc in the country. For years now, we've known that if we don't have a supply of cheap labor, you won't have cheap labor. So when you start cutting deals with the large corporations that are happy to employ some of the illegal immigrants and pay them a slave wage, guess who starts to oversee the modern-day slave trade? Joe Biden, que mala eres, and Alejandro Mayorkas. Impeached Alejandro Mayorkas, I should say. Impeached and not convicted. Disgraceful. Go ahead, play the tape.
Us to stem the flow of fentanyl. And I'm looking at people from all over the country here So I don't need to tell the folks who are watching this what fentanyl has done to families, to kids in our country, and the need to take seriously stemming the flow coming into our country and addressing that extraordinary and tragic issue in terms of its effect. The bill would have allowed us to have more resources to prosecute transnational criminal organizations. And it would have been part of the solution.
Now, hang on,
Donald
before you
Trump.
continue, Vice President, and blame Donald Trump, why on earth do you need a law, a bill, a piece of legislation that's going to allow you to prosecute transnational criminal organizations? Excuse me? So all of a sudden that's legal right now, and we need you to put a bill in, and because you're so ineffective at your job, and you say that Trump tanked this bill even though he's not in office because he called a few people in Congress and said it's a bad bill, don't support it, and voila, Trump wins? Trump's that powerful? If Trump's that powerful, we need him in the White House, right? Because things were better under Trump, factually. Just look at the record, look at the numbers. The border didn't have the problem that it has. So, Kamala Harris, it sounds to me like you're making the case for Donald Trump. Go right ahead.
Called up those folks and said, don't put that bill on the floor for a vote. He blocked the bill, and you know why?
Why?
Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And he has put his personal political security before border security.
Now, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, let me ask you a question. Because the initial question is, what are you going to do to stem the tide of illegal immigration? And so far, all I've heard is we were going to create a bill. We were going to increase the size of government. I didn't hear you say we were going to shut the border. I didn't hear you say we're going to work with our partners in government across the border to make sure that they keep people on their end. Kind of like what Trump did, right? The Remain in Mexico policy that really stemmed the tide. I haven't heard a single thing that you're going to do to slow things down at the border, but I've heard a whole bunch of things about why Trump did this. No, ma'am, you've been in office the last 3.5 years. No, ma'am, you're the one that needs to fix this problem. No, ma'am, you're not going to get away with this. I won't allow it. Anyway, we'll continue with that straight ahead. There's a couple of seconds left in that clip, and maybe I'll play it for you. Maybe I won't, because I want to get to your calls. We've got a bunch of calls that I want to get to. And the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez. We're coming right back. Open Phone America on America at Night. Looking forward to speaking with you. 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez live with you till 1 a.m. Eastern Time. And Mark Robinson, the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, is running for governor there. He's gotten accused of saying some vile things on a porn site called Nude Africa before his political career began. CNN reported earlier today that Robinson referred to himself as a black Nazi, quote unquote, on the site, where he also expressed support for reviving slavery and admitted to enjoying pornography with trans performers. Robinson also argued against allowing trans people to use the bathroom of their gender identity. So, I mean, if you look at the two things, he likes trans porn but doesn't like trans in the bathroom of their choice. The whole thing seems contrived to me, only because this guy's been in politics. And this is your typical opposition research that you should find, early on. Not something that you find when Trump is running. And to me, that's what it really sounds like, right? This guy's a very effective African-American surrogate of Trump's, who always does an amazing job, an eloquent speaker, a preacher in many ways. And why not attack him that way, right? This is how the enemy always works. They want to discredit. And why do I say that? Because this man has already denied these allegations, and they don't care. Listen to this.
How do you explain all of the matching details on this profile? The profile on Nude Africa lists your full name as Mark Robinson. The email listed on the account is an email that you have used elsewhere on the internet, including with your photo. You have used that name, Mini Soldier, on multiple social media accounts, including Twitter, Pinterest, Black Planet, and YouTube. How can you deny, with all of these matching details, that this is you?
Look, I'm not going to get into the minutia of how somebody manufactured these salacious tabloid lies, but I can tell you this. There's been over $1 million spent on me through AI by a billionaire son who's bound and determined to destroy me. The things that people can do with the internet now is incredible. But what I can tell you is this. Again, these are not my words. This is simply tabloid trash being used as a distraction from the substantive issues that the people of this state are facing. We have addressed it. We have said it's not true. And we wish we could move on and get busy with the business of the people of the state.
That's Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson going back and forth with a reporter. And the question was asked and the question was answered. Let's get your thoughts on this. Jerome, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Jerome, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, how many more of them Republican freaks you got hiding in your closet, Rich? Huh?
I got more than you could imagine, Jerome. So now you've heard this man. He's already stated his position on this, and because it's being reported in the media by a reporter who's asking questions, automatically it's true. This is like E. Jean Carroll when she said Trump raped me, went to court. They said he didn't rape you. Of course, they made him pay. They made him pay up the wazoo. But what's fascinating here is that you don't care about the truth. You just care to take shots.
I get it. He's a freak.
It seems like that's what you're interested in the freakiness of it. Maybe you should go check out Nude Africa and, and join the party. But it seems like Mark Robinson wasn't part of the party there, again, according to him.
Bring back slavery for old Mark Robinson. Bring it back.
Let me ask you this. When was the last time you saw any party, a black politician talking about bringing black slavery?
Hey, thank God for the Republican Party. The gift that just keeps on giving.
Amen. You'll be thanking God for the Republicans come November 5th. Jerome in South Carolina, Charleston, WTMA. Thanks for the call, my brother. Always good to hear from your voice, even if it's a dissenting voice. And we continue. I want to go to, Walter, St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. Walter, go right ahead.
Olá, Rich. E como está usted?
Super.
Good. To answer your question, sure. People are not going to see through all the lies because it's gotten out of hand. Like they're supporting for each other's immoral ways, and like Oprah now, another actress involved. A while back, you said that you went into I believe it was a specialty bakery, and the owner walked out yelling at you because you supported Trump. And that's happening all over today because of the hate for a man that's trying to save a nation from immorality. But immorality is what these people want, and it's going to be hard for Trump because it's snowballing now. So I hope we're not outnumbered, Rich.
Listen, brother, I do believe we're outnumbered when it comes to the media. I believe we're outnumbered when it comes to the university. I believe we're outnumbered when it comes to the left within the government. But the place where we can even the playing field, I believe, is at the ballot box. The ballot box is one of those places where I don't believe we're outnumbered. I believe we can outnumber them and we can make things better. But, Walter, it's funny that you brought that up, and I'm glad you did, because that did happen. And to my detriment, right, because I don't get these great little treats that she used to make, this woman does not favor immorality. This woman is, if I had to describe her, I'd say she's an incredibly decent woman. She is outraged by what she believes Trump stands for. And she's been led to believe that Trump stands for these things because this is, her left of center choice of media. And that's the part that really gets me. This is a beautiful couple, husband and wife, mom and pop, literally. And they run a great business, and they're very kind people. They've had so many positive interactions there until the day where she said, "How's the radio business?" And I said, "Oh, really good." I said, things are heating up right now. There's a lot more to talk about. And she said, "Oh, did you hear the one where now he thinks he's God?" And I said, "Who?" And she said, "Trump. He thinks he's God." And I said, "Where'd you see that?" She said, It's all over. I said, "No, I haven't heard that one. I'd love to, though. It's a really good one. I could talk about that on the radio tonight." And, so I pull out my phone and I'm looking for it because I'm like, if you don't do things in the moment, I'll forget by the time I get to my car. And as I'm trying to find it, she's like, "Can you believe that?" And I was like, "Oh, listen, I love this stuff. I absolutely love it." And she was like, "Well, what's there to like about that? I mean, this man's a threat to democracy." I said, "Well, I don't really agree with that." And again, I wasn't looking for a debate or a challenge, but she was offended. And she was like, "I don't understand. People like us, people of color, we have to stick together on this. This man is out to get us," right? Because she was led to believe this. Now, this is not a woman that, by any stretch of the imagination, would favor so many of the things that you're describing. And I agree with you. I think that there is a radical element of the left and the Democrat Party that does favor a lot of crazy, immoral things, especially the stuff they want to do to children by way of surgery. But this is just such an excellent case study, if you will, of this great family that runs this business, and they're probably 70 years old, the two of them. Great people that have just been led astray. At least she has. I don't know his position on these things. He's kind of like, "That's my wife. I support her." And God bless him for being a great husband. And they're probably married 50 years. Really just beautiful people. And it's heartbreaking to me that this is where they are. Because as much as I support Trump, and my support has been pretty emphatic for Trump, I'm not looking to stop being someone's friend because they don't like Trump. I'm not looking for people to stop listening to this show. Listen to the show all you want and vote for Harris. Do what you got to do, right? This is a free country. I don't care. I would prefer that you voted for Trump. I would prefer for Trump to be in office because I think he's the best option for our country, hands down. But sadly, this is where we are, and we have no one to blame but the media. And this is why I started the show saying I believe that for us to be effective, we have to make a change in wherever we go. So if that means we get into media, it means we get into media. If it means we get into the university system, it means we get into there. If it means us getting into something else, it means that. Whatever the case is, we've got to do it because we can't just sit back and let the left take us over this cliff that they want to take us over. Walter. All right. Looks like we lost Walter. Thank you for your call, brother. I appreciate it. Shout out to WFOY. And I'll take a pause right here. We'll come right back. The rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez here with you till 1 a.m. Eastern time. And that's midnight central if you're in WLS country. Shout out to everybody in WLS country, Chicago area. Love you guys. I love all of our affiliates. We have a great family of affiliates here. 12 stations in Mississippi. Love those guys. New York, California, Oregon. I'm just really always very proud and very honored to be on with you all. And speaking of being on, tomorrow I'm going to be on the Mark Levin Show. So make sure you tune in for that. if you have that opportunity. Now, I want to get to the rest of your calls. Let's go to Joe, streaming from WLS Country. He's in Arkansas, listening by way of Chicago. Go right ahead, Joe.
Yes, sir. No offense to your economist or yourself, but
sure.
I got to take issue with this quasi. I've not heard it called that exactly. Quasi-private entity, the Federal Reserve. Now, it's nothing more than it's not listed as government at all, but it's a private-public partner. He's equating that private-public partnership. No, it's a central private bank that Jefferson warned us against. And Hamilton loved that idea of having.
Help me understand where you're coming from, Joe. Are you saying that E.J. Antoni suggested otherwise?
Quasi-private entity, yeah.
It's not?
No, it's a totally private central bank, and it exists to serve the banking industry, the elite banking, not our small banks. The only thing it does for small banks is provide a little insurance for funds.
Well, I think, I understand what you're saying, and I agree. But I think the reason it's referred to as a quasi-agency is because it does, in fact, have government funding. It is appointed, right? The federal chair, Jerome Powell, and those people are appointed by the president, and they have their own federal police.
Well, yeah, government can do a lot of things and get by with it, but President Trump wants to do away with the Fed.
So do I.
And I'm with Ron and Rand Paul.
I think so does E.J. Antoni. I actually have never met anybody that's in favor of the Federal Reserve, other than maybe some Democrats.
Okay, well, I stand corrected if I'm wrong about that, but like Rand and Ron Paul have always said, they need to be audited to find out how much plunder of American funds has been ill-gotten there. Yeah. And I'll bet there's a lot. Now, Steve Forbes came out, and a lot of big shots are coming out with this tying our dollar back to gold. And you said right on your show, and you are exactly right, that there's a finite amount, and there's no way to go back to the only way that would work is if there was enough to go back to a $20 gold piece and a $1 silver piece, and go back and start over from there. But I see three ways that this thing's going to be solved. And repudiation, if Christ was to return, he would order it repudiated because of the fraud involved in monetized debt that's been going on all these years, well, since Kennedy. And they're not going to do that, we know. Number two, a big crash will clean it up. And, boy, that'd be hard on 300 and some million people. But the third way it could work, and it'd be very slow, is value all money in circulation. This is my idea. Well, it's been presented before to the GDP, okay, the domestic product. Now, people would want to work harder when they see that dollar coming back in value, getting higher, inflation is slowly going down. So,
yeah, it makes sense. The issue here, I think you're right on all accounts. Right, the only problem I think that what we're going to face is those would be a little further down the road. When Forbes was on, and E.J. Antoni and others who've suggested this, the same way we got rid of the gold standard is the same way we can get back on it, right? So just determining what that amount is. So if it's the current per ounce price of 24 karat gold troy ounce, right? Right now, I think that's $24.60 or no, $26.40, excuse me. Then that would be the case. That they would not need to actually back everything in gold. They would just attach the dollar price to the gold standard and, have whatever they have, Fort Knox and whatever. But, it doesn't put us into the mining business of being completely like asset backed, whereas we're still tied to the standard. Interesting, but I get it. And I think that's the way to do it, using the gold standard. And I think that would reinforce our international trading partners to say, okay, sure, you guys are back. I'm always of the opinion that as long as we have a robust military, That's usually the real hedge, is that people know it's like you're dealing with the mob, right? Not comparing the U.S. to the mob, but comparing, the system. What made the mob strong was not their word per se, it was the fact that, they could deliver with the manpower. I think we're in the same boat. And the minute we're not is when we're not. And we might be getting closer to that, with the weakening of our military, the weakening of our currency. Nobody wants to see that happen. So very good conversation. I could do it all night, but I got to take a pause here, and I got other people I got to go on. Joe in Salem, Arkansas, streaming on WLS out of Chicago. Thank you, brother. We'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So like I was saying to Joe, I think a return to the gold standard would be great. We would back our own currency with our own assets in Fort Knox and whatever. And it wouldn't force everybody else to have asset-backed currency because we would be the default world reserve currency. That's how I was trying to explain. I'm not sure if I got that out. Anyway, I want to continue with your calls. Let's see. Ruth, Elgin, Illinois, WLS. Ruth, go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. I was wondering if you had heard any clip in that Oprah interview where Kamala, I heard her say it on another station briefly, and she said that Trump was going to impose a 20% tax on tips and on what was the other one that he was trying to
well, he said Social Security, tax on tips, and overtime. And, the problem is she's been mischaracterizing a lot of what he's saying. Trump has been calling for, in many ways, an end for the income tax, and for that to be bolstered by a couple of different things, right? One of which would be people that want to purchase items from China or wherever would pay a tariff, and the other part would be a consumption tax. And this, this idea of a flat tax or fair tax has been floated for a long time, and a lot of people on the conservative side have the courage to talk about it, but nobody's ever had the courage to implement it or the political ability. I think Trump has both, and I would hope that he does it. This is, one of those things that it's a hope and a prayer, right? We really hope that happens. I don't believe for a second that either of those policies would make the middle class poorer or poorer. This is obviously Kamala Harris doing what she does best, which is telling lies. And, she's a fake, she's a phony, and she's a fraud. Ruth in Elgin, Illinois, I want to thank you for your call. Everybody that's on hold, I'm sorry. The music means I've got to go, but I thank you for your faithfulness, for your listenership, and for calling. Hasta la próxima. Until the next time, America, take care. Good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.